Okay, looks like it might be a quiet Friday. I know we're missing quite a few people on the call today. I know Carson is with very limited service right now. Craig is in the midst of traveling, and Dan is also traveling. Um, so since we're recording, and this might be a quick one, um, I think we can probably just get started because we can share the recording afterwards for people that missed it. Um, so since Craig's not here, I'm going to kick it off with a little update on the timeline for autopilot release. So here's some main critical path updates since the last one. Um, when the final code was completed, we received some final audit timelines. So the Sherlock competition finishes August 28th, which is about a week longer than the last public timeline update. And then we're estimating about a week more for that for the judging review period for the contest submissions. We got confirmation from Halborn on audit formal verification, and that's 9 weeks. We had last estimated that it would be about five and a half weeks to coincide with the first Sherlock estimate. So time to mitigate and review fixes is still kind of a moving target based on current estimates, which I think we feel pretty confident about at this point. I mean, bear in mind that a lot of these audit timelines have always been kind of finger in the wind, moving targets, but now we're pretty confident in where we're landing, and it's looking like the end of October and early November will be the autopilot mainnet launch. Some other updates is the testnet is being deployed now. The contracts and the connection to the front end. We've had some internal and select user interviews that are currently underway for the front end UI to gather some feedback. We may open this up to some more select people soon, but obviously we also will have the public testnet coming soon. We don't have a hard date for that yet, but we'll obviously announce it once we do. The last thing is the strategy contracts finish this week. They'll be reviewed and passed off to auditors by the end of next week. And the auditors are standing by to receive those. So that shouldn't affect the overall launch date, as the auditors are prepped to receive that, and they'll surge support with this audit review. And it's a smaller piece of the contract. And that's the final piece to be audited. So unless Cody or Sam, unless you have any other updates that are relevant to that, I think maybe I can pass it over to Sharp. Manuel, are you there? We can't hear you. I think before, when we were testing our mics, we had a little bit of trouble hearing you. So I don't know if your microphone is configured properly. Wait for him to get back in. There he is.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. Yep, we got you.
What's up, guys? So I just wanted to shed some light into the protocols that we met at EthCC. It was a super productive conference, and we wanted mostly to gauge the interest that exists in the autopilot, both from LST protocols and other DeFi integrations that I think that can be very exciting. So on the LST protocol side, we met with Stader, we met with Stakewise, and a few other players. And something that they were all very interested in, it was the DAO LMP. So they want to be able to integrate with Tokemak and essentially have an LMP that rebalances their LST exclusively through their own pools. And the way that we are presenting this to these protocols and to the community is really that this is a new way of LPing, and this is a new product offering that they can offer to their LPs. So instead of having to opt in between all of these pools, it's a more aggregate and consolidated version that they can boost to their offerings. Then, in addition to that, we met with Gravita. The Gravita meeting was very interesting. I really like the team. Rhett is an amazing guy, and we were exploring the possibility of integrating LMPs as collateral. And some of the requirements that were discussed, it was including in the LMPs exclusively the assets that Gravita already accepts as collateral. So this would need to be kind of a custom-made LMP for them. And the main concern that all of these LST-backed stablecoins have, it's the introduction of forms of collateral that they do not authorize. So those are the critical requirements. It's just building an LMP that has an overlap between the collateral types that this particular stablecoin has, and then rebalances across multiple pools, because they are already considering expanding to collateral in terms of LP positions. So overall, the feedback, it was great. A lot of people are keen on integrating directly with us upon launch. And on the stablecoin side, they also wanted to explore then LMP, but to the stablecoin rather than to the collateral type. But thinking about paths of collaboration, the most immediate alternative, it's really the collateral types. Then, in addition to that, I also wanted to quickly address the changes in the ACC token yield. So, as everyone probably saw, the Viper situation that we experienced on Curve implied that we decided to remove funds preemptively from all these Curve pools. And this was definitely just from an abundance of caution. So none of these pools were affected, but by pulling these funds, this is reflected on the APR, which dropped. And as we are conducting the rebalance of POA and consolidating it into the treasury back to staked ETH, we should see this APR improving over time, and this ETH will be used also to bootstrap the autopilot upon launch. So it's really a rebalance that is focused on supporting the launch of V2 and just kickstart the flywheel that is necessary once we start things off. And then the last update that I wanted to give, it's kind of related to the presence that Tokemak now has in LST liquidity, and particularly in liquidity councils. So we were invited both to the Block Swap and the Stakewise Liquidity Council. The Block Swap vote, I think that it's ending today, and it's already way over quorum, so all good. And on the Stakewise side, it was also an invitation from their team for our liquidity expertise. So in addition to our product offerings, we also want to support with our extensive research in liquidity strategies, liquidity incentives, and the autopilot products to be relevant players on the ETH LST liquidity field. And I think that in terms of updates, that kind of covers it.
I think next we were going to have Ahuja give a little introduction to a presentation that we're going to give, not this state of the reactor, but the next state of the reactor, so we can refine that presentation a little bit. But Ahuja, if you want to give a little intro to that now, that'd be great.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, I guess what I want to say is that we have a lot of results, and we've been doing a lot of studying of the different nuances of the framework that we are introducing with Autopilot. And there's a lot of interesting results and data to share. I think we'll do that next call. As you said, I could use this time to maybe introduce one sort of important feature that the Autopilot has, which is its adaptive swap cost offset. Essentially, what that means is that the Autopilot is not blind and it's not fixed. So it's reacting to market conditions. So essentially, when you have a swap that goes from, that the Autopilot makes from pool A to pool B, there's a non-zero cost associated with it. And the idea is that you should be getting enough incremental APR to be making up for that cost. Otherwise, you're going to see a NAV decay. You'll see, that the move wasn't a good one. So there's a certain amount of time that the autopilot gives to the swap to make up for that cost, and that really is something that we're making adaptive in the autopilot. So if the market conditions are such that you're seeing a lot of toggling back and forth across pools, then you would, essentially start tightening your constraint. And so essentially the hurdle rate goes up. So it's almost like you have to jump higher, to make that swap. So, similarly on the other end, if things are really calm and there's the delta between the pools is in terms of the APR is not significant, and then you'll see a lull in rebalancing. And so you won't see a lot of swaps go through. And if that happens, then the autopilot again sort of reacts to it based on the market condition and starts loosening. So it says, oh, I may not be getting enough APR, but the market environment is calm enough, and I can probably reduce it and relax it. So then it ends up sort of allowing more, more rebalances to go through. So this dynamic behavior is something that we have simulated, and we have results for that. So yeah, I guess I look forward to sharing more results. We look forward to sharing more results next time.
Sweet. Yeah, that's awesome. Very, very exciting. Okay, next, I think Plasma Farmer was going to give a little tease of the UI. I know some people, very few people and more internal people have started conducting tests, but we figured we'd give a little teaser today. So take it away, Plasma Farmer.
All right, thank you. And you should be able to see my screen, right?
Yeah, we can see it.
All right. Yeah, so this is our latest sneak peek. So here on the right, you can see how the LMP allocates to tokens and then see the flow to the deployment pools. And then when supplying to a pool, we're adding a feature where you can deposit most ERC20s. So they'll be swapped on deposit to ETH and then deposited into the LMP. So instead of just depositing ETH, you can deposit lots of tokens, which will be swapped into the LMP. So that's a nice feature. And then there will also be a migration process from V1 to V2 for your ETH. So you can see that below here. And then we'll have an analytics tab that will give a lot more detail into the analytics of the pool. And then some more statistics and then info on the allocations. So it's coming along. Go ahead, Sharp.
I was just going to say, Plasma Farmer, that's what I really like about this is that visually the liquidity flow shows you the exposure that you have in terms of the assets that are currently being deployed to and the underlying DEX where your liquidity is flowing to. So it seems very intuitive for people to grasp the value prop of the product. And in addition to that, I think that here you can see it, but once this is live, you'll be able to see the active deployments that will be highlighted in the liquidity flow.
Awesome.
And that's all I had on the design end.
Nice. Yeah, it's looking slick. Okay, cool. That kind of brings us to the end of our quick updates. But as I said at the beginning of the call, we're in a pretty good place with the audit timeline. We feel pretty confident. Obviously, there's always unknown variables when it comes to audit fixes. But yeah, so we're pretty pumped, pretty excited to get this rolling soon. And I know we've been quiet again after that Zila campaign, but we're gonna start ramping it up again once we get even closer to launch. So, and I think, yeah, go ahead.
Just a final comment, and we'll be seeking to really initiate that virtuous cycle once V2 launches, and there will be a bootstrapping campaign to attract TVL into the autopilot. I think that it's important to emphasize this because it will be a very attractive destination for liquidity during the bootstrapping campaign. And after the bootstrapping campaign is over, we still have the optimized yield of the APR. So my expectation is that the TVL that will flow into V2, it will be highly sticky. And that's something to look forward to for all the ETH LPs that are here present on the call.
We got one question about tokenomics. I think we're going to probably talk more about tokenomics as we get closer to launch. Isn't that right, Sharp?
Yes. In the interim between the current state and the transition to a new tokenomics model, people can still rely on ACC Toke as our main plan, but that will transition later on. So upon validation, we will share the new model.
Cool. And then the last thing I was going to say was, Cody or Sam, do you guys have anything to say about how the Sherlock campaign is going? I think it's been going well. I don't know if Cody's mic's working.
Let's see. Can you hear me?
Yeah. There we go.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been extremely active. It's kind of interesting. This is I think most of our kind of first crowdsourced audit, and you can kind of see the ebb and flow of auditors as I think other contests get over. You'll see an influx. I think last counted maybe something like 40 different auditors that I was DMing with over the course of the contest. So it's that's just the ones we know about. So it's extremely active. So far so good, as far as we can tell. Obviously we don't know everything so far. Getting a lot of good questions, a lot of good feedback. There's certainly some things found, like there probably isn't any audit. But so far nothing major has been identified that's kind of come up. So yeah, looking forward to that wrapping up. I think it's got another week or two, and then we'll go from there and see the results.
Sweet. Cool. And that kind of wraps up the call for today. It was kind of a short one, but we'll have that presentation ready for the next one, and we'll keep everybody updated. But things are rolling along. Things are looking good. We're getting closer and closer to the launch of autopilots. We're very, very excited. So thanks everyone for joining. Really appreciate it. I know it's a Friday and you could be doing a lot of other things right now, but we appreciate you being here with us. So thanks so much, guys.
Good weekend, everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone.